Welcome to The Real Tea. I'm your host, Tammy Murphy, broker-owner of RH2L, bringing Miami Valley real homes to love.
And I'm Ellie Sollenberger to give my perspective as a home buyer.
We're going to give you the key to Miami Valley real estate. All right, so we have topics for days with real estate
Hot
anymore.
Hot topics in real estate.
Something that's always going on, right? Something that's not good news or happy news or anything like that. Obviously more concerning is the reality check about safety and how realtors really need to be aware of the situations that they are potentially put into, just the things that we used to be told, about not talking to strangers, not getting into cars with people that you don't know, and all of these things we kind of joke about are all out the window because we call an Uber and we do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, realtors notoriously are meeting with people that they don't know. Potentially they're meeting with a stranger at a vacant house and at different hours of the day. So I always like to caution people in general, but obviously for potential clients, why questions would be asked. It's not to infringe upon any person or their rights, but it's for my safety, to make sure that, hey, when I get a call, let's just go there. I get a call on a potential listing that I have, and I don't know if that person saw it because of marketing, a direct conversation, if they have a realtor or don't have a realtor, or if they just happen to do a drive-by. So some of the initial questions that I will ask that caller is, how did you hear about me? How did you hear about the house? And you try to gauge some level of answers.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be offended by that, Ellie, if you called me and I said, well, tell me, how did you hear about me?
No.
How'd you know about the house? Did you see it listed or what? So this is where I know to be cautious is if I get a little bit of pushback. Well, what does that matter? Well, it matters to me because, one, if I don't know you, but you're calling me directly and wanting to get in to see this house, if you've done a drive-by and you're not working with a realtor, then I have to do an extra level of due diligence. For my protection is to make sure, one, that you're a legitimate buyer. So if I say, well, are you pre-approved? Are you working with a lender? That's, again, that extra layer of questioning to see, is this a legitimate buyer? One, is it worth dropping everything to go run and show this house? Are they working with a lender that I can verify the person? And then the other aspect of it is just knowing that they actually know the language. So we've had this episode where we talked about the TikTok and the guy that, basically lied to the girlfriend, and the husband and wife situation. I mean, they were even beyond boyfriend, girlfriend. They were married, right?
Yeah.
And it was all full blown. Like, how do you not know? Well, that's where a certain amount of due diligence up front from a realtor perspective is to ask those questions. So more particularly concerned, depending on the location of the home and when that home is requested to be shown.
Yeah, so I saw a TikTok recently that was just along this storyline, and it was from a realtor, and she was just kind of doing a story time where she said she got a request from a male that wanted to see a home at 8:30 at night.
Yep.
And so she reached out to him, said, well, I can't do it this time, but what about on Thursday? And they were kind of going back and forth. And then she gets another request for a home right down the street at 8:30 at night. And so she says, hey, I got this request. Why can't we see them both at the same time? And he said, oh, I thought that was going to go to a different girl realtor I saw on the website. Mm-hmm. So is this, you're trying to date these girls or you're trying to look at this house?
Right. And that is, when we talk about the glamour shows on TV and how they make it look so easy, but they also glamorize this, again, we're in the Midwest. I'm not showing up in designer dresses necessarily. I'm definitely not showing all decked out. I will be in business attire usually, but I'm conscious of how I'm presenting myself to somebody that I don't know.
Yeah.
But definitely if the call comes in and it's a male, you don't know that that is a legitimate buyer And so if the showing requested is at night, you know, right now we're still kind of in the summer where we still have more daylight, but it's starting to now tick away. So now an 8 o'clock showing, it's going to be dusk or getting dark when you're finished. That's a concern. It's also a concern depending on the home itself, if it's occupied or not occupied. If it's unoccupied, is that because it's actually vacant? Does that mean there's utilities on? So I'm not going to do showings at night in a home that's vacant that may or may not have utilities on with a buyer that I don't know. I'm just not going to level up that danger red flag scenario.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to gain my confidence to know that, one, you're a legitimate buyer, two, that you're qualified and able to look at this property and, if interested, write an offer, and three, that it's legitimate, that I'm not feeling like I'm walking into a more dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Now, can that happen with a female caller? Set it up? Absolutely. As realtors, we have been warned with those open house scenarios that it's usually a tag team. One person will occupy you while the other goes off. Usually they will be a male and female counterpart so that you don't immediately feel like, you know, you're being bombarded. But the reality is both female and male realtors have been attacked, have been killed, have had incidents that have happened. So it's not specific to one gender, and it's not specific to one area. So this is across the country. We've had these stories that have come out. This latest story I think I sent you the clip on was actually a Canadian agent who was murdered as a result of meeting a client, a new prospective client, in a situation and was unable to get to safety. The reality is that if you get offended by me asking some questions about your legitimacy as a buyer, potential client, then we're not a good fit.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I need to have a communication with you about your finances, about your desires, what your family needs are, what your specific needs are. And if we can't openly communicate and you understand that, then how do we have the harder conversations when we have to negotiate and you understand I'm working on your best interest, but the seller's pushing back, and so now we have to go here. So that open communication that really is built in the beginning, and I'm not going to hesitate that if I have a gut reaction or an instinct that this is not safe for me, I'm not going to take that chance. I'm not going to go down that path and show up at 8:30 at night to show you a vacant house because you were some guy that I thought sounded nice on the phone.
Yeah.
And I'm going to meet you. I'll be meeting you with a buddy, and local backup will be coming, or whatever is necessary if it got to that point. I mean,
So if you are a realtor and you feel like that situation's happening, but you're going to meet somebody, can you call the local PD and be like, hey, could you just kind of hang out?
yeah. So part of our policy is, first of all, never meet a client that you haven't talked to or established a connection with. So it's nice to say that you want the client to come into the office where you can take a copy of their ID so that you have it on the file, so that other people see the interaction, who this person is. It legitimizes it. If my conversation, if I start getting red flags and I say, well, here's what we need to do. Why don't you come into the office and we can set that appointment whenever it's good for you. If 8:30 at night is better for you, then come into my office. Let's go ahead and start the paperwork, because now we have to do that buyer agency before I can even show you anything, right? So instead of just sending a document through email where it's easy to get it signed, have that interaction with that person. If they no-show that appointment, then you probably have a good indication that at least it's not their priority. Maybe something came up, you know, and they'll reschedule, but the reaction is that if they don't show up because you were having them come in to the office and you have notified them you're going to make a copy of their ID and that they're going to have to sign paperwork, that's going to lay it out for somebody who's only bad intentions. They're not going to show up.
Yeah.
If you get past that, or there whatever grand reason and rationale for not being able to do that, they just got to meet you at the house because they're really time restricted, whatever story they want to give. My advice is to never go alone as an agent. especially as a female agent, but I'm telling you, there are stories where this has happened with male agents as well, and especially newer agents who are not experienced, who maybe don't want to ruffle feathers, and they're not going to say anything where the person may get offended by it. I'm not trying to offend you. I'm trying to be safe.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say this is what's needed, and if you say, yep, okay, we can do that, I may still bring my backup. I may still have the protection that I need in order to know that I'm coming into a situation where I'm not going to be taken advantage of. You know, we can talk all day long about the things that you want to do with an open house. You only have one way of access for people to come in. You don't unlock all the doors. You don't open the windows. And you come to the property ahead of time, which is the good time to say, hey, notify the police department, I'm going to be doing this. This is the hours that I'm going to be there, so that they're aware. They will do a courtesy drive-by usually to say, okay, everything's in order, especially if the home is vacant. They'll kind of keep an eye on it. And if it's, you know, now 5 o'clock at night and your vehicle is still there, but they've knocked on the door and there's no answer, they know to escalate that situation. The other thing we say is, you know, make sure you're not parking in the driveway. That way your vehicle is blocked in by somebody and then you can't actually get out. Obviously, do the smart things and don't wear all your bling if you're out showing clients, and make sure you have, and this is my worst issue, is that I almost always have something in my hands. I have my file, I have my iPad, I have my phone, whatever. If you are not hands-free, you're not able to scratch, bite, do whatever you need to do, you know, to combat anything that might be necessary. So take the necessary precautions. I never carry a purse.
Yeah.
It's just not something I would do, because I wouldn't want there to be this thought that there's something worth taking.
And share your location with somebody.
Sharing your location, having that backup. Our electronic lock boxes in our area have a feature on there where there can be a distress signal sent, and that will alert your immediate contacts that you've put in the information. These are all things that the reality of it is, we meet strangers, we show empty houses, and we do this at all hours. And we are likely on our own, independently doing this, but if we're smart and we know this has a higher risk level, then we're going to take those additional precautions. And I think especially when an incident happens, it's wise to just reinforce that. As the public, don't be offended if somebody's asking for these things. And as an agent, a realtor in the business, experienced or new, these are things that you should be doing. And if you are at least aware of it, right, then maybe it causes that concern. And we always say in any of the safety trainings and everything that I've taken, the one thing that every instructor will say is trust your gut.
Yeah.
If you're walking out of the house and you're already on your phone and you think you've locked it up and there's going to be, you're not paying attention to your surroundings, you're not doing basic rules of safety for yourself. So take those precautions and be careful, and don't be offended if we ask extra questions.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good topic that people don't think of when they're just, oh, I want to buy a house.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, and here's the thing, we've got the NAR settlement, we've got all the changes that are coming out of there, and again, I think people are really hammering down and looking at realtors as the bad guys. Let's just be honest about some of the things that realtors have put themselves in line for, and that dangerous aspect. If I worked a 9-to-5 job and I was at some facility in an office, I'm not really probably concerned about these types of things. And I've got my paycheck that's coming on a regular basis, and I probably have insurance, and I probably have a savings account or a retirement plan. None of that applies to a realtor.
Yeah.
So let's get off of this. We've made too much money. There are situations and there have been bad apples. But for the most part, the reality is you're picking on the wrong people. And we need to speak up for ourselves. And we need to let the public know reality of what our job entails, what our profession entails, where we don't have a set paycheck. We don't know when our next paycheck is coming, right? So we need to be good financial stewards. We need to budget. We need to live accordingly. but we also have to plan for our own insurance and for our own retirement. And so out of proceeds that we earn, yes, all of these things are trying to be taken care of, as well as daily living expenses, as well as business expenses, as well as taking care of our own families. I mean, come on, really? You want to gripe about my earnings off of you buying a house or selling a house? Did I earn it?
Yes.
I mean, I certainly hope that I proved it over time that I earned it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the voice that realtors need to be having right now, is that we are worth the money that we're charging if we're doing our job. And if you feel that I'm not, then have that conversation with me, because commission has been and will always be negotiable between the parties. So if you think, yeah, you know what, that was too easy. You just made way too much money. Really? Okay, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And we can have that conversation. And at the end of that, I may see things more your perspective. You may see things more by my perspective. And we're going to be able to come to terms with what we need to do. And I don't have a problem with any of that. I think that gives accountability as well as opportunity for conversation and growth for everybody.
Yeah.
So you kind of got me off on a tangent today, just talking about this. It started about realtor safety, but you know, NAR settlement just keeps creeping up for different reasons. You know, and people are saying a lot of things out there, and we're seeing the pushback in our market. So we're seeing this pushback where sellers aren't wanting to offer that compensation for a buyer broker, and buyers are pinching, right? Because the cost is already higher, the interest rates are higher, the inventory is still low, and buyers are pinching that money to say, how can I save to get there? When we have news commentators and things that are being said that are making blanket statements about this next generation will never be home owners, you just wiped out the potential of any generational type of wealth or the opportunity to earn money off of real estate, which is normally everyone's single way to make money in a process that's done correctly. That equity that you build from a purchase and a sale of one home leads to the upsize and the potential bigger home, and then more equity that's earned to where you step up. And when you start stepping down, pulling that money out so that you have money for your retirement, you can pay for your kids' college. Those are all things that help the general public for financial stability. If we're taking it all away and we're saying, let's just go to a rental society, I'm sorry, that builds nobody's nest egg or equity opportunity except for probably the big guys who are holding the equity balance of all of these homes.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what we as a country have set out to say we want. And so I'm bringing caution to this to say, you know, it's not just about the big hedge funds or the BlackRocks or anything like that that want to come in and gobble up any housing inventory. It's about people and communities understanding investors are good in the right realm, right? But individual home ownership is a right and a protection that we need, a right that we need to protect, and an opportunity for people to be able to generate some wealth, some stability, some future potential for themselves. So that's where I will go with that conversation, to say, I'm not here trying to advocate for the loss of home ownership. I'm looking for ways to say general people, the average person, should have that right and opportunity, whether it's affordability, inventory, pricing, and interest rates, commission for the services that are paid, lender fees that are in there, the title cost, all the aspects that go in there. Yes, the person who's buying or selling should have some ability to say, what's this going to cost me, and am I good with that?
Yeah.
Am I still making the money that I need to make? And now I'm an informed person who's making this decision to move forward. So for somebody who's been through it a lot, well, at least a few times.
Yeah.
At least I think you understand that perspective. And so if anybody has a problem with what I've said, reach out to Ellie. She can tell you from a client perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Is that it?
That's it. So the tip, be safe, be aware, make sure that you answer the questions and understand why those questions are being asked.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us today on the Realty Podcast. If you enjoyed the knowledge and entertainment today, please subscribe and share with your friends. We will be embarking on a journey that bridges the gap between realtors and clients, uncovering the heart and tea of real estate.